Are these indie games on Game Pass any good? To answer this exact question, I've been trying to play more indie games on Game Pass recently. I found that some titles leave the service before I've gotten around to them, so occasionally I'll just try and boot up as many as I can in one go. So to start with, I tried Goat Simulator 3. I feel like Goat Simulator 3 really didn't get advertised as much as the first title. I'm really glad I got around to trying it though, because it was one of my favorite couch co-op experiences in a really long time. So the goal of the game is to find secrets and unlock and complete challenges. But the game is so absurd, you never know what you're going to find as you explore. And there's plenty of references to other games, memes, and pop culture too. It sets the tone right off the bat by making a Skyrim reference, which completely caught me off guard. In the game there's tons of ridiculous activities, such as participating in a yoga class, dropping a nuke on a town, finding a secret rave, repossessing a house from squatters, and visiting a comic convention. And honestly, that just scratches the surface of the game. So in the game you do play as a goat, and as a goat you can do all the normal things goats can do. You can scream, you can lick stuff, jump and attack things. Oh, and you can also do flips and spins as well. You know, just normal goat stuff. So the game can be played with up to 4 people, and each person has free roam over the open world. If you want to, you can choose to team up to complete missions together, or you can spread out and complete things independently if that fits your style. And speaking of style, as you explore you unlock tons of customization options, some of which grant you special powers. Overall, it felt like the game was a major improvement over the first title. If you want something fun and just goofy to play, I would highly recommend this game. The next game I tried is called Party Animals, and it revolves around you beating up other animals so that you or your team can be the last one standing. It feels similar to the game Gang Beasts or other brawlers that are in this style. So you end up feeling kind of floppy and not really in control of your character. You can pick up items like shovels, tasers, and crossbows, and you can pick up other animals too. It seemed like the best strategy was to try and knock another animal out, and then attempt to throw them outside the arena. I think if you're looking for something to play with your friends, this is probably worth like about an hour or 2 of your time. I felt, for me at least, it got pretty repetitive quite quickly. I thought the character designs were pretty well done, but I would have liked to see more variety in the gameplay. Power Wash Simulator is an odd title, and I didn't think I would actually like it, but it ended up being super satisfying for me. In the game, you take the role of a power washer, and so you basically just clean stuff. And yeah, I know it doesn't sound interesting, but stick with me here. The game starts you off in the expected areas. You get to clean a car, you clean someone's house, their driveway, but as the game goes on, the missions start to get more crazy. In addition to the base game, they've also added some free and paid DLC. Overall, it's a pretty simple game that doesn't take too much concentration, and because of that, it's the perfect game to play while listening to podcasts. I chose to listen to the Safety Third podcast while playing, and I had a pretty good time with it. As you can see from the footage, you're basically just swapping out attachments and you're cleaning stuff. But every time you completely clean a section, you get this nice little bell chime and the section flashes and lights up, which is just oddly addicting. Additionally, as you get closer to finishing the stage, the sections that are left over will also start to kind of flash periodically to let you know that you still need to clean those areas. I was also surprised to find that the game actually has a story to it, and it was actually pretty good. Out of any of the simulator-styled games that I've tried, I would say this one is actually the perfect mix of simulation and game. I would highly recommend you give this a try if you want something to just chill out to. So next is Palworld, and I feel like I was wrong about Palworld. Well, kind of. When I first tried the game, I wasn't extremely impressed. I thought it felt pretty janky and extremely rough around the edges. Didn't really feel like it was ported over to the Xbox properly. And as it turns out, the Xbox version of Palworld is an older build of the game compared to the PC version, which is likely why it felt off. Some people have tried to simplify the game as Pokemon with guns, but I don't think that's really a good way to describe it. The game is really similar to Ark Survival Evolved, but instead of dinosaurs you have pals, so it's more like a multiplayer survival game. The gameplay loop kind of boils down to collecting resources, crafting and building bases, catching pals, leveling up, and fighting bosses. I'm a bit hesitant towards the developers, as they haven't finished their last title, Craftopia, yet. But I would say if you have Game Pass, give the game a try. Play it with some friends, but expect it to be janky. After giving it enough time, I was able to get through some of the jank, and I still actually enjoyed it decently enough. If you decide to play the game by yourself, I would highly recommend playing it on the easiest difficulty, as it helps to remove some of the more grindy elements of the game, but if you have some friends to play with, that's definitely the way to go. I wouldn't recommend probably buying it outright just yet, as I'm not really sure how much staying power the game will have over time, but if you have a month of Game Pass, you can at least try it out. If you don't like it, there's likely something else you can have fun with in the meantime. The next game I played is Jusant, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Either that or I've completely butchered the French language. Whoops. This game is like if you took the climbing from Assassin's Creed, but then made it more interactive. You use the right and left triggers to latch onto things with your right and left hand. And as you climb, you can place down anchors that act as soft checkpoints in the event that you fall. Overall, though, I found the game was quite forgiving, and I didn't really ever feel like I was losing much progress if I did fall. I think one of my favorite uses of this anchoring system was when you needed to climb up a wall, place an anchor down, and then use the length of your rope to kind of shimmy down and swing across to another area. In the game, you climb this massive tower while learning about what has happened to all of the people that used to live there. The game's story reflects on topics such as climate change, personal growth, and dealing with life's changes. The game isn't too long, but I feel like that's probably a good thing because it didn't overstay its welcome. I think overall, though, my favorite part of the game was this baby. So next up is a game that I think is actually probably pretty good, but I just don't think I was in the right mood for it when I was playing it. It's called Toem, and the premise is that you're going on an adventure, and in each location, you have to take pictures and complete objectives in order to progress. It has a fun perspective mechanic that has you looking at the world from a third-person perspective, but then transfers over to a first-person perspective when you go to take a photo. The cool thing about this mechanic is that it opens up fun little perspective puzzles and helps breathe life into the world. I think if you like relaxing and chill games, you might have actually a pretty good time with this one. I think I was just hunting for something a little bit more exciting that night. So for this next game, I didn't personally enjoy it, but it seemed like the reviews online all seemed to think it was great. So with that, I would say maybe try it out. I could be entirely wrong here, and maybe I'm just a grumpy old fart that doesn't know what's good. The game is called Frog Detective. Overall, the game felt like a visual novel. You moved around an island talking to suspects, and you would mash on the A button to get through the dialogue and then find some items. You would then revisit some of the characters you previously talked to trade items, and then that's pretty much the whole game. I think the game pretty much lives or dies on its dialogue and whether or not you like it. And for me, it just didn't really hit. This kind of makes me think of how I've heard some people refer to Game Pass as the Netflix of gaming. And in some ways I would agree. There's some very mediocre titles that have come out on the service over the past while. However, I always feel like it's good to try out all the games anyways. I discovered Outer Wilds through Game Pass, and it turned out to be one of my favorite games of all time. Now, unfortunately, Outer Wilds isn't on Game Pass anymore, but you should really check out the game regardless, especially if you like games where you get to explore. And last on the list, I'm going to sneak this one in here, is Mirror's Edge. If you have Game Pass Ultimate, you can play titles published by EA. Alternatively, this game also goes on sale for like $5. I revisit this game quite frequently, and in my last video, I went over the game in depth if you feel like checking that out. Some of the titles I went over today are some of the maybe lesser known or talked about titles on Game Pass, but there's tons of other great games on the service that I could go over. If you'd like me to cover some of my all-time favorites, let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Take care, and I'll see you next time.